Well, my father came here in 1929 as a student, and he was married, and they were the first married couple on campus, because up until that time, you couldn't be married and live on campus. If you were married, you hid it, and the boys were in the boys' dorm, and the girls were in the girls' dorm, but they didn't have accommodations for them then. So at that point, they lived in what was then the hospital. They lived in the basement, which later turned into the music room, house, and it was a brick building behind Watkins, and they tore it down a few years ago, and we have a brick from it. And they lived there. My mother was pretty lonely because she didn't go to school. My dad worked at Woolworths, and he played football. And he graduated in '33 with a theological degree, and he became an Advent Christian minister. And during that time, during the Depression, the 30s, they raised gardens, and they canned so that the students would have vegetables, because it was very slim pickings around here, and if it hadn't have been for the treasurer, the university probably, or college, wouldn't have lasted. But Mrs. McCann, I don't know what year she came here, but she was head of the dining room. And I think she was here quite a long period, and she was here probably up till in the 50s. And then Margaret Snyder came to work. They came here in '48, and Bill Snyder ran the maintenance department, and he was the one that hired my husband in 1954 and then had him come back in '56. And they were like my second parents. My dad got him the job here because he was from a church in Ohio, and then he got Marv the job here. And our boys went to school at Freeman. When we came here, we lived in the basement of Wilkie, and that was the apartment for the boiler man, and that was what he was hired for, is to run the heat. And we lived there until 1961, when they decided to put a computer lab in. And so we moved to Spartan Terrace, and we lived in Spartan Terrace 311 from 61 until 1965, when they said that they were going to come down and we had to find another home. So our kids grew up on campus. When they got big enough to run around, even after we left here, they had paper routes, and they would come through campus. And they loved basketball. In fact, our youngest son was Mickey Johnson's water boy. And you could find him in the boys' dorm rooms. And I didn't start work until 1965, and I worked until 1984. We used to have camps. Miss Illinois pageant was held here at Aurora College, and we fed them out of the dining room, and that was a wonderful experience for everybody. They stayed in the dorms. It was in the summertime, during August, I think. They started first having the pageant at West High, and then they went to the Paramount Theater. But we fed them, and they lived in Memorial and Davis, and the housekeeping would have to, change their linens, and they liked a lot of thin diet foods because they didn't want to gain any weight. So salads really got to work out during that period. And they would have a chaperone with them for each participant that they had. In fact, our now daughter-in-law was a chaperone for Miss Naperville. We didn't have any money to decorate stuff with, so we'd go to our gardens and get, roses or daisies, or one afternoon I went home and picked a bunch of hollyhock buds, and we had them in little bowls on the table, and as I said, sometimes they would have banquet meetings down in the dining hall when it was a small group, and I think that's one reason why they had the piano down there, in case they were having a musical. They used to have a quartet here of college professors. I can't even remember what they were called, but they would dress funny and they sang. And they would sing down there. But it was a very close-knit family. Even if there was, 300, 400 kids in the dorm, we knew everybody.